like a story to have a lot of morbid and even depressing moments, but, you know, at least end on some kind of a glimmer of hope, you know? Hello, my friends, and welcome to the newest edition to the Month of the Pioneer, Dear Esther, the Landmark Edition. Now, this probably isn't the first walking simulator game ever made, but I do believe it was significant enough that it counts. Because it's certainly one of the most well-known ones, at least from what I could tell. It's pretty much credited with sparking that genre. Essentially. So, let's check it out. Even if you're not into walking simulators, hey, I consider it a part of gaming history.
Dear Esther, I've lost track of how long I've been here, and how many visits I have made overall. Certainly the landmarks are now so familiar to me that I have to remind myself to actually see the forms and shapes in front of me. I could stumble blind across these rocks, the edges of these precipices, without fear of missing my step and plummeting down to sea. Besides, I've always considered that if one is to fall, it is critical to keep one's eyes firmly open.
I see. What happens if you actually go into the ocean and then you just go significantly into the ocean? Okay. You just die. He has super drowning powers. So there is a lost state. Okay.
Come back.
Oh. It just teleports you. I'm not sure if this one is, but apparently the original one at least was on the Source engine. And I think this one is, because you can tell. No offense. I mean, it still looks good, very good from a distance. When you get up close, you can sort of tell that it's a very aged engine. Not that I'm going to complain about that. I was playing NES and even older games on this month. I'm just saying. What the? It looks like an elemental formula. Interesting. Well, you know, a compound. There are elements, and then they form a compound. You know what I mean. Let's see. This area certainly looks dilapidated, if I'm even using the right word. It's very much decayed. A Herbidine history. Very interesting. Looks like a picture frame. Or a mirror. I'm gonna go with picture frame. That would be a toilet right there. I guess this was just a commode. There was no bath in this bathroom. Oh well. Okay, that's a sink, so that probably is a mirror. So I guess there wasn't a shower or a bath or anything. It was just if you had to go. Huh. Boiler. Is that paint? I think that's paint. Yeah, I can actually read that. It says paint. The text may be small, but I can read it. Just barely. I'm probably taking up my time now. I should probably keep going. The narrative won't start without me. That's why it's a walking simulator. It's interesting to look around. And yeah, I do believe there is a merit to games like this. In fact, it's a shame there aren't more games like this on mobile phone. This is one of those genres that seems like it would be perfect for mobile phone. You know, like turn-based RPGs and things of that particular nature. Or even WarioWare-type party games. Well, mini-games. Mini-game-a-thons where you just tap on something like WarioWare, as well as turn-based RPGs and, you know, walking simulators like this. You'd think that would be perfect for a phone. I guess it's because there's a stipulation against mobile games being full productions that are any sort of expensive at all. I think Super Mario Run, people even didn't want to pay like $5 for the whole thing. That's why it's popular on phones for something to be free to play, but then it has a ton of microtransactions all over it, because people don't want to have to pay the $5, you know, straight up. They don't want to have to pay $5 to $20 straight up for a full game. They'd rather get a free game, it would seem, and then do it in little chunks.
There was once talk of a wind farm out here, away from the rage and the intolerance of the masses. The sea, they said, is too rough for the turbines to stand. They clearly never came here to experience the becalming for themselves. Personally, I would have supported it. Turbines would be a fitting contemporary refuge for a hermit. the revolution and the permanence.
Very interesting words you've got there. You know, this may be antiquated billboard, but there is at least a lot of foliage, so it at least looks lush. You gotta give it that. I'm guessing it didn't matter which one you came up with. I'm guessing you would have come up with the same thing to say. It's the illusion of choice. It's gonna end in the same path anyway. Or maybe I'm wrong on that, who knows?
The mount is clearly the focal point of this landscape. It almost appears so well placed as to be artificial. I find myself easily slipping into the delusional state of ascribing purpose, deliberate motive to everything here. Was this island formed during the moment of impact? When we were torn loose from our moorings and the seatbelts cut motorway lanes into our chests and shoulders, did it first break surface then?
My guess is a lot of magma formed it, but then again, what do I know, right? It's usually how islands are formed. And I would guess...
Someone had died or was dying, or was so ill they gave up what little hope they could sacrifice. They cut parallel lines into the cliff, exposing the white chalk beneath. You could see them from the mainland or the fishing boats, and know to send aid, or impose a cordon of protection, and wait a generation until whatever pestilence stalked the cliff paths died along with its hosts. My lines are just for this, to keep any would-be rescuers at bay. The infection is not simply of the flesh.
This man has an impressive amount of things to say. I was just going to say, at the very least, islands are formed initially by magma, and sometimes they have a volcano lingering.
I quote directly, a motley lot with little to recommend them. I have now spent 3 days in their company. That is, I fear, enough for any man not born amongst them. Despite their tedious inclination to quote scripture, they seem to me the most God-forsaken of all the inhabitants of the Outer Isles. Indeed, in this case, the very gravity of that term, forsaken by God, seems to find its very apex. It appears to me that Donnelly, too, found those who wander this shoreline to be adrift from any chance of redemption. Did he include himself in that, I wonder?
Who knows? I was going to say, this guy has a lot to speak about, doesn't he? He's definitely got a lot on his mind. I mean, I haven't played that many walking simulators, pretty much just indie games. The most significant ones are this, right now, and What Remains of Edith Finch. I loved that one. Although I
Dear Esther, I met Paul. I made my own little pilgrimage. My Damascus, a small semi-detached on the outskirts of Wolverhampton. We drank coffee in his kitchen and tried to connect to one another. Although he knew I hadn't come in search of an apology, reason or retribution, he still spiraled in panic, thrown high and lucid by his own dented bonnet. Responsibility had made him old. Like us, he'd already passed beyond any conceivable boundary of life.
That is certainly something. Anyway, I was going to say, I don't consider What Remains of Edith Finch to be 100% a walking simulator. Don't get me wrong, it's very much a walking simulator for the most part, but occasionally has some light puzzles that you have to solve, which seems to be the norm for a lot of things that could be considered walking simulators in a way. Because they don't want to be just considered, you know, just a conveyor belt of story.
I threw my arms wide and the cliff opened out before me, making this rough home. I transferred my belongings from the bothy on the mount and tried to live here instead. It was cold at night, and the sea lapped at the entrance at high tide. To climb the peak, I must first venture even deeper into the veins of the island, where the signals are blocked altogether. Only then will I understand them, when I stand on the summit and they flow into me, uncorrupted.
It's almost a shame that the flashlight turned on, because this bioluminescence growing on the sides, it's quite interesting to look at. And it certainly made the cave possible to look through pretty easily, even without a flashlight. I mean, yeah, maybe this spot specifically is a little dark, but maybe it could have just opened up for this part. And ironically, it's still in pitch blackness, but it turned light. Of course, I am near the entrance. It's not like I'm going to get lost this way. That would just be silly, wouldn't it? Wait, what the? Did I just go around in a circle somehow? I'm not even sure what just happened. Ah, I did go around in a circle, didn't I? The whole point of that was to get more insight and to look around. It's definitely a very beautifully crafted environment, especially for its time. And even though I was criticizing the billboard grass, I definitely have to give it credit. They definitely made the most of what they were given. Obviously, you couldn't expect Zelda Breath of the Wild grass that it seems more polygonal, but the fact that it sways like that in the wind, and you can see it sway aggressively, especially earlier when I was up there, it's very, very nice to look at.
I dreamt I stood in the center of the sun, and the solar radiation cooked my heart from the inside. My teeth will curl, and my fingernails fall off into my pockets like loose change. If I could stomach, I'd eat, but all I seem capable of is salt water. Were the livestock still here, I could turn feral and gorge. I'm as emaciated as a body on a slab, opened up for a premature source of death. I've rowed to this island in a heart without a bottom, all the bacteria of my gut rising up to sing to me.
Man. This guy was in an interesting state of mind when he wrote this? I have to assume that the main character is reading from something that he left behind or something. Unless this is just the end result of him writing a letter. Maybe I'm playing as the guy who is saying all this. Maybe I'm playing as the narrator, maybe, and this is him recollecting while he's writing a letter. That would make a lot of sense, wouldn't it? I know with What Remains of Edith Finch, this may be actually, it's probably not even a spoiler because it's at the beginning. You don't play as the person narrating, you play as someone else, and he starts reading a letter, and then it shifts to her perspective. Then again, it shifts to all the family members' perspectives as you start reading their stories. So maybe what it actually is this is looking at his perspective, who ended up writing the letter. It's just a guess, though. I'm not really sure.
Dear Esther, I have now driven the stretch of the M5 between Exeter and Bristol over 21 times. But although I have all the reports and all the witnesses, and have cross-referenced them within a millimetre using my Ordnance Survey maps, I simply cannot find the location. You'd think there would be marks to serve as some evidence. It's somewhere between the turn-off for Sanford and the welcome brake services, but although I can always see it in my rear-view mirror, I have as yet been unable to pull ashore.
I'm not going to pick a forking path, I'm just going to go into the middle. Take that. You can't control me. You can't force me to choose. I'm going to make my own path. Take a third option. What do you say to that? Walking. Well, I'll give him that. The writing and the graphics are going to take center stage in a game like this, where it's mostly a walking simulator, so at least they know how to do that really well. Even if the gameplay isn't exactly there, except, you know, for the most part just holding down the W key. You know, not every game has to have extreme amounts of gameplay. That's the great thing about the video game genre. It can encase a wide variety of different types of games for everyone. And I do believe in that. That's the strength of the video game genre. That's also why I heavily disagree with people who say that games like Bloodborne or Sekiro or especially Dark Souls need to have an easy mode. No, I disagree with that. I don't think that those games need to be made more casually friendly, because there are already countless games like this that are extremely casual friendly. You shouldn't have to force a game that was never meant to be casual friendly to become casual friendly. I think the strength of the video game genre is that some games are casual friendly, some games are hardcore, and some games fall somewhere in between, and some games choose to have difficulty levels. I don't think that should be forced on them. I think some games should just be allowed. That would be like someone...
The boy has kept me lucid. I sat, when I was at the very edge of despair, when I thought I would never unlock the secret of the island, I sat at the edge, and I watched the idiot boy blink through the night. He is mute, and he is retarded, and he has no thought in his metal head but to blink each wave and each minute aside until the morning comes and renders him blind as well as deaf-mute. In many ways, we have much in common.
I see. Anywho, I believe that whether a game is shooting for a more that would be like a more hardcore audience going to a game like this and saying, "How dare you be casual? We want an option to where you have to go through hordes of zombies or aliens or demons or something. You should have the option to make this into a first-person shooter and have a hard mode." Nobody is asking for that. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous to look at a specific game and say, this should conform to what I want. No, there are probably already countless games that conform to what you want. If you don't see a game that conforms to exactly what you want, then you should make one. You should try to make one. Now, I haven't delved into game making as much as I maybe should. I'm actually thinking about putting more of an effort into it. I actually hadn't touched Unity in a little while, but...
I had kidney stones, and you visited me in the hospital. After the operation, when I was still half submerged in anesthetic, your outline and your speech both blurred. Now my stones have grown into an island and made their escape, and you have been rendered opaque by the car of a drunk.
Not gonna lie, this is getting dark. Anyway, I hadn't touched Unity in a little while, but at least I made Capitalist Chaos, and I had tinkered around with some other projects. If you don't see a game that fulfills your needs, then why not either make one yourself or see if you can have one made? You know, like, request it. Put your ideas out there. If you got a good idea for games, why don't you just put it out there and say, hey, would anyone like to take a crack at this? Don't just go to big companies and say, you better conform to me. Because if they want to talk about entitled, I think
I've begun my ascent on the windless slope of the western side. The setting sun was an inflamed eye squeezing shut against the light shone in by the doctors. My neck is aching through constantly craning my head up to track the light of the aerial. I must look downwards, follow the path under the island to a new beginning.
I think it's a little bit entitled to go to a game that was never meant for you. I mean, actually, these are the same kind of people who will say to a game, or a part of a series that basically goes out of its way to twist as much of what it made it popular to begin with as possible, they will look to those new entries that basically wave a middle finger to the existing fandoms and say, well, this isn't for you. Yet they will go to existing franchises that were never meant for them, and they will say, I better demand that they make this for me. They better change this for me.
The bothy was constructed originally in the early 1700s. By then, shepherding had formalized into a career. The first habitual shepherd was a man called Jakobsen, from a lineage of migratory Scandinavians. He was not considered a man of breeding by the mainlanders. He came here every summer whilst building the bothy, hoping eventually that becoming a man of property would secure him a wife and a lineage. Donnelly records that it did not work. He caught some disease from his malcontented goats and died 2 years after completing it. There was no one to carve white lines into the cliff for him, either.
Ouch. Yeah, that's unfortunate. So basically, to sum it up, I don't think you should ever try to force a demographic change for an existing franchise. If you want a different demographic, then you should just make a new franchise. Pure and simple. That's why I don't like the new Disney Star Wars. I definitely do not like how The Last of Us 2 appears to be. Because they tried to force a demographic shift that shouldn't have been there. I think what they should have done was made a new franchise if they wanted something different so badly. And people demanding that an existing franchise like Dark Souls conform to them, I think that's sort of the epitome of entitled. Because that was never meant for you to begin with. I think that when they say that you're entitled for expecting a franchise that was always towards a demographic to stay towards a demographic, then they're the ones demanding that an existing franchise change its own demographic completely. I think that's not only hypocrisy, I think that's just silly. But then again, it's just my opinion. I should probably focus more on this game and not my...
3 cormorants seen at dusk. They did not land. This house built of stone, built by a long-dead shepherd. Contents: my camp bed, a stove, a table, chairs, my clothes, my books. The caves that score out the belly of this island, leaving it famished. My limbs and belly famished. This skin, these organs, this failing eyesight. When the battery runs out in my torch, I will descend into the caves and follow only the phosphorescence home.
I see. Yeah, I should probably quit focusing on my own ramblings and start focusing on this game a little more, huh? Although I guess I really don't have that much to talk about other than what he's talking about. He's talking about the remains of what once was, and I can definitely understand that. I can definitely understand where he's coming from. You know, I could try jumping down there, but I'm pretty sure that wouldn't be a very good idea. Because...
What to make of Donnelly, the laudanum and the syphilis? It is clearly not how he began, but I've been unable to discover if the former was a result of his visiting the island or the force that drove him here. For the syphilis, a drunk driver smashing his insides into a pulp as he stumbled these paths, I can only offer my empathy. We're all victims of our age. My disease is the internal combustion engine and the cheap fermentation of yeast.
I see. Yeah, I don't think jumping down would be a good idea. Just stepping into the ocean causes him to have super drowning powers and then teleport. Whatever happens, it would likely make it take even longer.
They found Jakobsen in early spring. The thaw had only just come. Even though he'd been dead nearly 7 months, his body had been frozen right down to the nerves and had not even begun to decompose. All around him, small flowers were reaching for the weak sun. The goats had adjusted happily to life without a shepherd and were grazing freely about the valley. Donnelly reports they hurled the body in fear and disgust down the shaft, but I cannot corroborate this story.
Well, that got dark. So, he died in the bitter cold, and before the body even stopped being warm, they threw him down a shaft? Is that what he basically said? I'm not really entirely sure, but it sounds dark nonetheless.
Climbing down to the caves, I slipped and fell and have injured my leg. I think the femur is broken. It is clearly infected. The skin has turned a bright, tight pink, and the pain is crashing in on waves, winter tides against my shoreline, drowning out the ache of my stones. I struggled back to the bothy to rest, but it has become clear that there is only one way this is likely to end. The medical supplies I looted from the trawler have suddenly found their purpose. They will keep me lucid for my final ascent.
Ah, I see. Well, I didn't slip and break my leg, so unless that's going to inevitably happen, maybe it wasn't him that I'm playing as. Oh, wait, here we go. Looks like I am playing as him. Either that or I'm following in his footsteps. I'm gonna guess I'm playing as him.
Donnelly did not pass through the caves. From here on in, his guidance, unreliable as it is gone from me. I understand now that it is between the two of us, and whatever correspondence can be drawn from the wet rocks.
I see. Ooh, that looks really nice. Look at all the stalagmites. Obviously they're low poly, otherwise there wouldn't be able to have so many of them at the time of this release and still maintain a good frame rate, but still. Just the fact that they're pretty far away from the camera, so it sells you on the fact that it looks higher poly than it actually is. Although I think from this angle, yeah, you can tell that each one of them is basically just 4 triangles. But if you look at it from a distance, it really sells you on the illusion, and it looks amazing. All of this looks amazing. This is really detailed. If this really was the Source engine, then this is really impressive, all things considered. If they had made a new Half-Life 2, maybe Episode 3, that was this detailed, people might almost buy that it's a new engine. They might even buy into thinking that it's a new engine. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but still. This seriously does look amazing.
There is no other direction, no other exit from this motorway. Speeding past this junction, I saw you waiting at the roadside, a one last drink in your trembled hands.
Oh. Do I have to go towards the center? Candles. No, I don't have to go... I wasn't supposed to go towards the center, but... I'm glad I did. It's one of those things where this isn't the mandatory path, this isn't where you're supposed to go, but... it's pretty nice nonetheless. Unless that is where I'm supposed to go. And for some reason I just didn't hit the right spot, because I don't see any exits. I don't see any way forward. I think that might have been it. That's obviously where I came from, I think. Unless... is this where I came from, or is this where I'm going? I honestly don't know. Was I meant to go down or up? I'm confused now. No, I'm definitely going the wrong way now. I was supposed to go up. Sorry about that. Of course, he said one final ascent, not descent. Oh boy. Now, because of that, every little chance, the more time I waste, the worse off I'll be, because I won't be able to show as much. Because I only have about 3.5 minutes left. Let's try to make the most out of them, huh? And this is a hell of a way to go about it. Look at that. That is beautiful, is it not? Holy. Ah, the majestic beauty. Looking upon God's creation. Time to fly. I'm in the water. And it didn't just go to an instant game over state. It even has water caustics. Yeesh. I'm being overwhelmed by the prettiness. You know what this proves definitively? It doesn't really matter so much the graphics technology involved. Or I should say, it's not make or break. Because even the Source engine can produce something that is truly gorgeous to look at. It really is up to the artist involved. And yes, I'm pretty sure the Nintendo Switch could do this easily. So, pretty much any system out on the market right now. I'm pretty sure most phones nowadays, because they have hardware-accelerated GPUs and multi-core CPUs, they can do something like this easily. And it's like I said, it's a shame that companies can't put in more of a budget to have games like this on smartphones. Can you imagine how amazing that would be? Or maybe not a pure walking simulator, maybe, I don't know, something else that combines this with a different aspect. I'm not sure. Actually, I did say turn-based RPGs would be best for this, so here's what I'm thinking. A first-person game where you wander around very beautiful environments, at least for iPhone and Android, and I guess for those of you who still use them, Windows phones. Make it look as good as possible by those standards, and have you wander around it, but then it's also a turn-based RPG. I think that could be very interesting. But then again, maybe I'm blowing smoke, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Who knows? All I know is that this looks very beautiful, and they're definitely making very good use of brightness maps here, because these bioluminant, I'm not even sure if I'm saying that right, bioluminant mushrooms, that is just amazing. That's incredible. That's all I can say. That's a very simple way of putting it. This looks incredible.
In my final dream, I sat at peace with Jakobsen and watched the moon over the Sandford Junction. Goats grazed on the hard shoulder, the world gone to weed and redemption. He showed me his fever scars, and I mine, between each shoulder the nascency of flight.
You know what? I can go on with this game a little longer than my normal playthrough time. I'm going to try to stretch this out as long as possible. If it's still like 35 minutes or something and there's no end in sight, then I'll end it off. But otherwise, I want to continue this. I don't want to stop. It would be a damn shame, a crime even, to stop here. At least in my opinion. Look at that. Can I go in there? Or would that cause a reset? Looks amazing, though. This is crazy. Okay, I was supposed to go up, but it doesn't matter. I wanted to get a closer look anyway, even if it wasn't the right path. And look, there's a lot of crystals there, too. That looks amazing, too. Look at just the way the light reflects off of it. It's using cubic environment maps, obviously, but they're used to very good effect. I could probably tell you most of these graphical effects that are used to do this. I actually have anti-aliasing on, naturally. I mean, if you can do it, why not? And this is the source engine, so I was able to max everything out entirely, and then some. I can tell you pretty much every effect that's at work here, but that doesn't mean it isn't still very pretty. Like you can tell, there's normal mapping everywhere, especially the rock. Because if you look at it just straight on, it looks flatter because it's an illusion. But if you look at it downward, then obviously it sells you on the illusion because it calculates the shadows and the specular highlights, and it makes it appear bumpy. And that's what gives it that effect. That's what gives it that kind of value. But hey, everything just fits together so perfectly. Who even cares if you know the trick? It's not like a magician. Even if you know what the trick is, it's still amazing. Then again, with some magicians' tricks, even if you knew what the trick behind it was, you'd probably still say, hey, that's still pretty damn awesome. It's still pretty damn amazing.
This is a drowned man's face, reflected in the moonlit waters. It can only be a dead shepherd who has come to drunk drive you home.
Very nice. Okay, I need to get out. Can I get out? Oh, okay. Maybe I should look for where it dips above, or maybe I should just keep swimming down and see what happens. I honestly can't tell at this point. There doesn't appear to be a way out. I'm trying to bump up against... Okay, there we go. I almost thought I was trapped in there. That would just be silly, wouldn't it? More candle lights. Obviously, you need some kind of light. Behold. Ascus plus Pagan? I can't tell what that says. Okay, that's some more compound formulas. That's very interesting. That looks like a circuit. Circuits and compounds? Where's this going to lead to? This is glow-in-the-dark paint, isn't it? That stuff that I thought was growing on the trees, that wasn't... I mean, in the caves, that wasn't really it, was it? Away from being a city. What the? And it shall be a ruinous heap. Okay, that just got a little cynical. Luckily, I've got all these pretty visuals to distract me from that. I'm kidding. Clearly, whoever was writing this letter was not in a joyous mood, to say the least. Although you can't help but be mesmerized by looking at everything. Okay. Now I have to go into the water. That's fine. Well enough. It's a nice chance to be mesmerized by the refractions and the caustic effects. Huh. Huh. There's actually more of a sound, in a way, when you're under the water. Mostly because of the submerging sounds. This is nice. What the? What's down here? What the? street. Is this a city? Oh, I get it. That's an IV. I think I'm starting to understand now. This is symbolism. Whoever you're playing as, or Esther, whoever was writing to Esther, this is symbolizing something. Someone's in a hospital bed. Or not, I have no idea. I honestly have no idea. Where's this going to end? Well, it is five minutes at overtime, but there appears to be something this is building up towards, so I'm going to keep playing. Hope you guys are cool with that. The whole reason why I changed to 2 videos per day to begin with was because there were people who said that an hour was too long, and I think I made a poll out of it, and people decided that they'd rather have 2 videos in 30 minutes than 1 video at an hour. Still, I'm willing to take a little bit extra time for this. What the? Is there even an end to this game? Well, obviously there is, but is it near? Is the end near? I mean, not that I regret taking extra time, but especially with music like that, that is amazing. I just hope I'm near the end soon.
The moon over the Sanford Junction, headlights in your retinas. Donnelly drove a grey hatchback without a bottom. All the creatures of the tarmac rose to sing to him. All manner of symbols crudely scrawled across the cliff face of my unrest. My life reduced to an electrical diagram. All my gulls have taken flight. They will no longer roost on these outcrops. The lure of the moon over the Sanford Junction is too strong.
And I'm not saying that because I want it to end. Quite the contrary. I want to see where this ends because, I mean, I can't keep recording forever, and I'd really like to see the climax to this. I'm actually invested in this, believe it or not. There are some games that are very much story-driven, even if it doesn't have gameplay.
Of fire and soil, I chose fire. It seemed the more contemporary of the options, the more sanitary. I could not bear the thought of the reassembly of such a ruin. Stitching arm to shoulder and femur to hip, charting a line of thread like traffic stilled on a motorway, making it all acceptable for tearful aunts and traumatized uncles flown in specially for the occasion. Reduce to ash, mix with water, make a phosphorescent paint for these rocks and ceilings.
Is that what that paint was made of? Did he have himself cremated? And then he placed himself all over that paint? Is that the climax? Is this what this is building up towards? Because that's pretty crazy. Maybe I am playing as...
by the roadside,
no, not really.
by the exit for Damascus, all ticking and cooled, all feathers and remorse, all of these signals routed like traffic through the circuit diagrams of our guts, those badly written boats torn bottomless in the swells, washing us forever ashore.
I can't be playing as him because the phosphorus paint was already placed there. It has to be someone that he wrote to. And this person decided to follow the signs. I think his letter was basically an invitation to come here. And this is supposed to all lead to something, I'm sure. But I'm not entirely sure what.
From here, I can see my armada. I collected all the letters I'd ever meant to send to you, if I'd have ever made it to the mainland, but had instead collected at the bottom of my rucksack, and I spread them out along the lost beach. Then I took each and every one, and I folded them into boats. I folded you into the creases, and then, as the sun was setting, I set the fleet to sail. Shattered into 21 pieces, I consigned you to the Atlantic, and I sat here until I'd watched all of you sink.
I see. Well, look at that. Look at all those boats. Those little boats. Carrying all the letters he ever meant to send. I'm guessing I'm meant to come here. It's a real shame I can't read those. You could probably make out the words from here. Was I supposed to go down here? Or is this another fail state?
Come back.
Alright, my mistake. I wasn't meant to come at least come through that way. I'm either meant to go over here, or I'm supposed to go past it entirely. My bad. So how much is there to this? I didn't see a way forward, but maybe that's because I wasn't looking. Maybe it's because I dropped off the edge. Maybe I should have gone down the ramp. Or maybe I'm just not looking hard enough. Who knows? Okay, I can't go that way. Can I go this way? Is this an option? Or not? Oh. Okay, here we go. Nope. Frick. Now I'm stuck down here. Guess I gotta go down into the ocean again. Oops. Yeah. Give it a minute. Sorry about that. I'm now over 41 minutes. I'll try to go down the ramp. I'll try to go down the ramp. We'll see what happens then. Or maybe I'm just supposed to follow the candles. Who even knows? If I get another fail state, then I will just have to fast forward, won't I? At least that way it won't be completely lengthy for you guys. But I do feel like making this play complete. Was I supposed to go up the stairs? Was I completely looking in the wrong direction? That is a possibility. Then again, maybe I did go up the stairs. Who even knows? I don't remember. No, I would have remembered this. This is definitely somewhere new, I think. Yeah, you can see the candles down there that were leading me over there. Which means I am supposed to go up here. Sorry about that. I guess even in a walking simulator I managed to get lost. In my defense, he was talking about the letters
when
and
Paul keeled over dead on the road to Damascus, they resuscitated him by hitting him in the chest with stones gathered by the roadside. He was lifeless for 21 minutes, certainly long enough for the oxygen levels in his brain to have decreased and caused hallucinations and delusions of transcendence. I'm running out of painkillers, and the moon has become almost unbearably bright.
There's a silhouette of a man. I see a little silhouette of a man. Sorry to break up the very emotional moment with such a silly song reference. Scaramouche, Scaramouche, will you do the fandango? I won't continue that, although there are thunderbolts of lightning, and it's very, very frightening. Alright, enough with the song references, Galileo. Enough of the rhapsody.
I've begun my voyage in a paper boat without a bottom. I will fly to the moon in it. I've been folded along a crease in time, a weakness in the sheet of life. Now you've settled on the opposite side of the paper to me. I can see your traces in the ink that soaks through the fiber, the pulped vegetation. When we become waterlogged and the cage disintegrates, we will intermingle.
He's gone.
When this paper aeroplane leaves the cliff edge and carves parallel vapor trails in the dark, we will come together.
Oh, really? You don't say. And as he was proceeding on his journey, what? I think as an absolute maximum, I will not go longer than an hour. So if it's longer than an hour, then no matter what, I'm just going to end it there. I hope it doesn't have to come to that. I want to see where this is going. He was near to Damascus. Is that what it says? He's drawing a parallel between Paul and he eat nor drink.
If only Donnelly had experienced
Neither did
this, he would have realized he was his own shoreline, as am I. Just as I am becoming this island, so he became his syphilis, retreating into the burning synapses, the stones, the infection.
It's amazing just how involved this story is. And yeah, again, pretty much gameplay is non-existent except wandering around, but you have to give it to him. Like I said, there's a type of video game for everybody, and I believe there is a place for video games like this, and I can enjoy all types for the most part. Oddly, for some reason, I get bored really easily by professional games like Madden. Yeah, I don't get bored.
Back like a nail, like a hangnail, like a drowning man clung onto the wheel, drunk and spiraled, washed onto the lost shore under a moon as fractured as a shattered wing. We cleave, we are flight and suspended, these wretched painkillers, this form inconstant. I will take flight, I will take flight.
Near the beginning of the game, I probably would have explored that, but now I just want to go along the main path a little faster. Like I said, I don't actually find this boring like I would find Madden NFL. Maybe that's because I'm so captivated by the man's story and I want to hear what's going to happen next. Whereas with Madden NFL, it's basically the only commentary there is football jargon. And I'm not the biggest fan of football or such things in general, so yeah. At least this has something deeper to offer, I think. And I'm not trashing on sports, not the slightest. But if I'm being honest, sports seems like it's, in my opinion, you could have your own opinion, sports is more for watching or playing than it is, I mean, you know, playing in the real world. Actually,
a gull perched on a spent bonnet, sideways, whilst the sirens fell through the middle distance and the metal moaned in grief about us. I'm about this night in walking, old bread and gull bones, old Donnelly at the bar gripping his drink, old Esther walking with our children, old Paul as ever, old Paul. He shakes and he shivers and he turns off his lights alone.
I think sports is more interesting to watch or actively participate in the real world than it is to play a video game of. Again, you can disagree with me. And that's the great thing about things. You can disagree with me, and I'm never going to say that Madden NFL shouldn't exist. I'm just going to say it's not for me. Just like games that I feel are too centralized, focused on being sexual came into. And I'm not saying that a game that isn't an absolute, mind you. I mean, I'm willing to play The Witcher 3. I've been live streaming that, even though it has some sexual moments, and you can definitely participate in more sexual moments if you choose to do so. That's not the central focus. I wouldn't want to let's play or live stream a game where just sexual themes are centerfold. This guy I know wanted me to play Senran Kagura, and I didn't.
We will
I
leave
declined.
twin vapor trails in the air, white lines etched into these rocks.
Fair enough. I declined because I didn't want to play a game where that's the central theme, you know what I mean?
Dear Esther, I have burnt my belongings, my books, this death certificate. Mine will be written all across this island. Who was Jakobsen? Who remembers him? Donnelly has written of him, but who was Donnelly? Who remembers him? I have painted, carved, hewn, scored into this space all that I could draw from him. There will be another to these shores to remember me. I will rise from the ocean like an island without bottom, come together like a stone, become an aerial, a beacon, that they will not forget you. We've always been drawn here. One day the gulls will return and nest in our bones and our history. I will look to my left and see Esther Donnelly flying beside me. I will look to my right and see Paul Jakobsen flying beside me. They will leave white lines carved into the air to reach the mainland, where help will be sent.
I see. Don't jump. Why? Did he come here just to die? Esther, I mean? Or am I really playing as the man? Couldn't be. The phosphorus paint was already made. Does that mean that this actually... And the paper planes, the paper boats, I mean, were already made. Does that mean that this is actually Esther and he threw himself over the ledge? Why? Oh. Oh, okay, good. I thought he threw himself over the ledge because there was never any indication that it left the first-person view. Phew, good thing that wasn't the case. It had me going there for a second. Oh, thank goodness it didn't end in tragedy. Because with how cynical a lot of the game is, it made me think that it was going to go in that direction. Thank goodness. I'd rather it ended with a beautiful profound than just being cynical and depressing. I think a lot of people would. I like a story to have a lot of morbid and even depressing moments, but, you know, at least end on some kind of a glimmer of hope, you know? Maybe some will think of me as closed-minded for that, but I mean, who doesn't like a good happy ending? Even if it's not perfect, even if there is some pain along the way, and even if there is some pain that will probably never go away, I think overall the story should end on a glimmer of hope. That there should be something beyond that. I think if it ends completely morbidly, there's no ray of hope. It just feels like a cliffhanger, you know? I think we're hardwired as human beings to want to have some kind of glimmer of hope in the end. No matter how cynical you are. All of us have to have that part that wants to know that there's hope beyond this. Well, I'm glad I played 22 minutes beyond what I would normally play. It was worth every single second of it. And I'm not even sure if okay. These are the credits. It was worth every second that I spent playing this. Check out these people. These are the people that were involved in it. Very good. Very nice. I enjoyed it. It's definitely a very good walking simulator, although if you don't want to play it, you can always watch someone like me play through it. Although if you got this far, unless you've been skipping around, then you've already seen it. So, yeah. This is one of those games that you could easily get all of it bi-curiously through someone else. And if you've been watching this far, I thank you. I hope you enjoyed it, and that is it for now. Thank you so much for tuning in with me. Make sure to spread this video around like the birds and the ocean waves. And I will see you next time. Now go out there and capitalize on life. Peace out, have a good one, and have a nice and very pleasant day.
If you enjoyed the content and want to stay up to date, I upload 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every single day. You can also subscribe and hit the bell icon, or just check out the end screens right here.